With recent news of Ye working on a brand new project over in Japan, yet another album can be added to the long list of unreleased Kanye projects. That album being Donda 2. Among Ye's many unreleased albums, Donda 2 likely had the most promo and money behind it, with Kanye hosting an entire stadium listening party for the record. Some tracks off the record, albeit mostly unfinished, would even be released on the Yeezy stem player. But although people in Kanye's camp said the album would be finished and released on streaming, Donda 2 would never drop on Apple Music or Spotify. Regardless of the album's lack of a release, the public nature of the album's progression has made it so us fans have access to many tracks that would have been on this project. Along with understanding what the album would have sounded like, we also have a pretty good grasp on where Kanye's headspace was at when making this project, due to his mass amounts of posts on Instagram, mostly aimed at all-timer douchebag Pete Davidson, in the midst of handling his divorce and building back his self-confidence. So, with the album now officially left behind, let's look back on this strange, yet fascinating era in Kanye's career, and see what could have been with Donda 2. So I guess we ought to start out with the original Donda. It was an album that dropped by Kanye West in 2021, and Kanye really ran the summer with this thing, holding 3 public listening parties, all streamed on Apple Music, that captivated viewers, listeners, fans alike, as the track list was ever evolving. Between each show, there was songs added, songs removed, verses added, verses removed, etc. Like I said, huge success. And people were very much interested in where Kanye would go next regarding his musical ventures because the album was so well received. And we would first hear news of what Kanye was up to in the studio in very early 2022. As 2022 began, rumors would begin to circulate regarding Kanye working on a sequel to Donda, as Steven Victor, who is the manager of Pusha T, would say that Kanye was in the studio working on an album that would be a sequel to Donda, titled Donda 2. While some people weren't exactly sure it would be exactly called Donda 2, they actually did begin to buy into the hype that Kanye was working on some new tracks, as in January of 2022, Ye would be seen in the studio with the likes of A$AP Rocky, Pusha T, The Game, and more. First hint of music we would get from Kanye in 2022 would be a song in collaboration with The Game titled Easy. The track would drop on the 14th of January, and it would be generally pretty well received. In my opinion, it still holds up to this day as a pretty fire song. You got the Easy Does It sample, it's pretty great. But more news, bigger news, if you will, regarding Kanye's musical endeavors in 2022 would follow. On the 27th of January, Kanye would post on Instagram announcing Donda 2. It was said to be a sequel to Donda that would release on the 22nd of February in the year 2022. Kanye was like really caught up in this like 2/22/22 date. He thought it was like big date. The stars were aligning. It was time. He had to drop something. I just touched my mic. Also in the post, Kanye would say that the album would be executively produced by Future. And the album cover seen in the post would be a picture of the Donda house on fire. A visual that was first seen at the 3rd public listening party for Donda back in 2021. Now mind you, this was posted on the 27th of January, and the album in this post was said to be announced on the 22nd of February, less than a month away. And while it's very far-fetched, people were already skeptical, especially with Kanye's history of releasing shit, delaying albums, etc. He would seem pretty focused. Kanye associate Theophilus London would post Kanye in a video where he is mid-massage saying he's not going to be on his phone, he's not going to be on social media, he's focused on his kids and finishing this album. He will return on the 22nd of February when the album drops. Yet Kanye posts just a day later dissing NFTs. We knew we were doomed. But most of this album would be created at the Soho House in downtown LA. Kanye would rent this place out, and at this establishment we'd start to see the likes of Travis Scott, Don Toliver, and more in the studio with Ye cooking some new music up. And we began to get, hints on who's going to be featured on this shit. Additionally, Mike Dean would be there, which is always a good sign. He mixes all the Kanye albums, and he's always a pivotal role in Kanye's records in his discography. But someone less expected to be seen working with Ye on this record was Marilyn Manson. Now, his presence alone pissed a lot of people off because of his allegations. Other people defend him, point at the fact that he was proven innocent, and me personally, I'm just a big fan of his music. I separate the art from the artist, and I just enjoy his cover of Sweet Dreams. We'll get into his contributions on Donda 2 that were mostly unheard by the mainstream public in a more in-depth fashion later on in this video, but Kanye's instructions for how the audio engineers, etc. were to handle Marilyn Manson recording for this album, they're very interesting. Digital Nas would say that Ye told them, let him do his thing. Let him create his rock, metal songs. And then Kanye kind of, I'd imagine like a sampling kind of fashion, would then use those tracks and mold them, transform them into a song that more fit his sound. Digital Nas would also elaborate on the studio sessions for Donda 2, saying that Kanye told the producers and everything to take a more monk-like approach, kind of simplify the songs down, break them down. The goal was to make an album that could be played at funerals, graduation ceremonies, weddings, and childbirth, which is it's a very wide and diverse umbrella. While many songs created for Donda back in 2021 would be thrown to the side and not put on that record, left over, not released, Kanye simply wouldn't just like take unused tracks from that original Donda era and make this sequel album. He actually, according to Boogs the Beast, would create all new tracks centered around an entirely different sound. That new sound, in my opinion, would best be described as like Kanye's take on a trap album, which would shed some light on why Kanye decided to have Future be the executive producer of this thing. 2 tracks would be released while Donda 2 was in the works, those being City of Gods and Diet Coke. City of Gods would be a collab with Fabio Foreign and Alicia Keys, with some Playboi Carti ad-libs on the track as well. And tying the track together would be this insane verse by Kanye. It's actually like really emotional and awesome. Diet Coke, while not having a Ye feature vocally, would be produced by Kanye. And it would be a track that would hype fans up for Push's then upcoming album, It's Almost Dry. One of the crazier moments in this Donda 2 era would be when Kanye linked up with Drake, Baby Keem, Young Lean, Travis Scott, and more for a private Donda 2 listening party. Just the pure star power in that picture is insane. Like, for real, still just such a hard shot. But we can't talk about the Donda 2 era without talking about Kanye's beef with Pete Davidson and various Instagram posts centered around issues with his family. Kim and Kanye would be, at the time, very close to filing their divorce, something Kanye was originally against, for the sake of the kids and everything. He wanted to work shit out, but Kim was not into that. Well, it seemed like she was, but then apparently she was not. But Ye would mainly have beef with Kim's new boyfriend, Pete Davidson, who would taunt Ye several times over text and even get the initials of Kim and Ye's kids tattooed on his neck. This is like a month of him dating Kim. Like, that's fucking weird, bro. But the reason Ye didn't like Pete is because he understood and he knew that him being around his kids dating Kim was solely done to promote and add a plot point to this upcoming Kardashian show that was premiering on Hulu in 2022. Which at the time seemed crazy, but legitimately, he was proven right, like days, not even days, like the week after the show's final episode premiered, Kim and Pete were done. And again, Kanye wasn't mad that his ex was like with someone else. He started dating Julia Fox, like he was getting on his, back to being single shit. It was that this dude was artificially around his kids and set there as a plant for a money grab. Like, I don't blame him. With Kanye's family being ripped apart, his resentment for his ex-wife's recent actions, and new position in life as a non-married man, Ye would tap into that toxic personality that the media and Kardashians were attempting to paint him as, which worked perfectly for this trap-style record. Kanye would post a lot of funny shit, just dissing Pete Davidson at this point in time, but it would have some serious repercussions, as Pete is literally the reason that Kanye and Kid Cudi aren't fucking friends anymore. Like, seriously, Kanye would post, Kid Cudi is not on Donda 2 because he's friends with you-know-who, and it would, like, contradict the themes of the record, I guess. I don't know. It was a really petty thing to do, but Cudi would respond very immaturely in the comments section saying, you know what, you're a dinosaur. I've carried all your albums. I don't need you. So you got a very petty decision in this post and a very immature response in the response from Cudi. So, at the end of the day, there's no winner here. The fans, the ultimate loser. But a launch event would be announced for this Donda 2 record on the 12th of February, just 10 days away from the album's supposed release, and it was set for Lone Depot Stadium in Miami, Florida. But unlike the previous listening parties for the first Donda record, allegedly this was going to be a listening party and a performance. And we'll get into this shit show very, very soon. And while this got fans hyped, because who doesn't love a listening party? They're fun. You don't know what you're getting into. It's like a cool first listen experience. Kanye would soon make another announcement that had the opposite effect. And he would basically say that Donda 2 would be released only, exclusively, on the Yeezy Stem Player. While I like Kanye's intentions here, pointing out that artists get robbed on streaming sales, they only get about 12% of revenue. It's just, I'm selfish, okay? I want all my music where it is on streaming together on my phone. I don't want to go to the stemplayer.com website. Come on. Also, this would just result in a bunch of people pirating the version of Donda that was released, which is just a mess. But with the album never really being finished anyway, it's like, who cares? Ultimately this kind of isn't as big of a deal as it was in the moment. But we're just days before the Donda 2 experience. You got Kanye posting with people like Jack Harlow, taking hard-ass outfit pics with him in the game and Noor. Kanye's even posting track lists, and all the hype leads to February 22nd of 2022, where Kanye would hold the Donda 2 listening experience. The day of, you got all these cameras showing the setup, showing the people, production crew working. You got backstage cameras where you could see like Playboi Carti getting ready to go out before he performs off the grid. Really cool, and visually this thing is awesome. You got the house that burned down on the third listening party for the original Donda. It is present center stage. All the burn damage is there. It's all dark and gray and shit, and you got all these like dystopian looking soldiers. It's a really visually stunning look. It's awesome. But things on the audio side would be awful. Things seem to start out okay. Kanye's just premiering the new Donda 2 tracks, and there's only a few issues there. Like Pusha T's out there, they're jamming to Diet Coke, and then they accidentally cut it before it even finished, and it was just really awkward. And poor Pusha T was finally getting his moment with Kanye, like has he just kind of awkwardly walk off as they stop playing Pablo. Then that they already it was just a mess. And the only other thing wrong with these new tracks being premiered is that they were unfinished. Kanye, when he did have a verse on the song, he was just mumbling through it, which was very disappointing. Yet also, to be fair, by a lot of Kanye fans, expected. But ultimately, it was like these songs, it's a different sound from Kanye he's taking on, his version of a trap album, really, like I said earlier. And a lot of people were like, yeah, this has potential. I just hope he gets on it and fucking finishes it. But then the show would transfer over to the performance side of things, and this is where shit hit the fan. The issue really lied in this. The performers have an earpiece in that helps them understand things, because they're in a giant stadium. Like, you can't really rely on the audio that the fans are hearing when you're center stage there. And their audio in their earpiece was off sync compared to the one that the fans were hearing in the arena. So they are, they're doing their vocals, singing, rapping along to their verses, etc., and they're off beat. Kanye would be understandably very frustrated. At one point, he even whipped his mic when he was performing Jail with Marilyn Manson, and Marilyn Manson just like awkwardly like standing there like, I've seen worse shit. Things would end on a high note though. It finished with Off the Grid, and while Fabio Foreign got absolutely bodied by the beat, like for some reason he had not catched on. Like a lot of people caught on and been like, yeah, don't even try to rap along your verse. Like he just tried and failed miserably, and it is genuinely just so hard to watch even to this day. But Playboi Carti's out there just doing his crazy ass ad-libs, doing what he does, which works, and it almost got Kanye to smile a little bit, just almost. And the show ends, there's a big fire explosion, Playboi Carti dies, and Kanye walks off very, very, very frustrated, very pissed off. And the best part about all of this is that the album wasn't even finished. So it's like, yeah, like, this was a rotten performance, but now the fucking songs we're waiting for, they're not even done. Fans would get a random, non-promoted drop on the Stem Player website of 4 tracks played at the event. The songs being Security, We Did It Kid, Pablo, and Broken Road. But these tracks were obviously not finished, and even when Kanye is on them, which was rare, his verse was just like full mumble. The Donda 2 event really pissed Kanye off. Like, you'd visually see it in his face when he's walking off from that Off the Grid performance. And like, if you ask me, it's never been reported officially, but I think the disastrous state of that event really encouraged Kanye to like scrap this shit, if not just completely change what his plans were album wise, because he would continue to work on the album. We would see him in the studio taking pictures with Future, and even people like Rhymefest posting about working on Donda. But this shit, honestly, like, spoiler alert here, it would never be fully finished. Alex Klein, guy who invented the stem player, would go on social media and basically say that as the album was finished, as tracks were updated, verses were put in, the stem player website would be updated and these tracks would be available for download. Second update would come on February 24th. That would be the big one, entitled Donda 2 version 2/22/22 Miami. 10 of the new songs were played at the Donda 2 event, and one of them was not. It was brand new, never heard before. The track list went like this: True Love, Broken Road, Too Easy, Get Lost, Flowers, Security, We Did It Kid, Pablo, Louis Bags, Happy, Sci-Fi, Selfish, Lord Lift Me Up, Keep It Burnin', City of Gods, and First Time in a Long Time. And this is considered the final version of Donda when you see people like Anthony Fantano and Pitchfork like reviewing the album, which is ridiculous to me. Definitely not finished here. This is what they consider the track list. But with this update, the album obviously still wasn't finished to anybody who listened to it, but it seemed like this thing was going to be updated periodically, and fans were given a look inside the creative process as this thing was a living, breathing, changing creative expression of art. It's honestly a really dope idea if the album were to reach a final conclusive state. But only a few more updates would follow this big Miami version. You have one update where True Love is updated to make it really sound worse, taking off the runaway drums. Then you have a version that censored the entire album. There was a version that took off the vocoder effects of Too Easy, making that track sound a lot worse as well, and the updates never happened again. We'd see videos of Kanye and his friends listening to Donda 2 uncensored. Ye would even post pictures working with Beach House, yet us fans would be left in the dark regarding the progression of Donda 2 following this point. As the months went on, people who worked on the record with Ye would begin to mention the record less and less, before finally, the prospects of a finished Donda 2 record would completely fizzle out. Although it was never discussed publicly, Kanye allegedly planned to do a Good Friday's revamp and drop songs every single week in April. Not only would this idea never be executed, but also fans would never get to hear these tracks on streaming or even be able to access them via the stem player. At one point, Ye would randomly say that Donda 3 was even on the way, and that's when you knew shit was done. People that claim Donda 2 is an official Kanye album and try to review it and critique it on the level of like a late registration or a college dropout, to me, it's just ridiculous. The tracks are very roughly mixed. Kanye's not even on some of them. There was never any merch or physical copies ever put out, despite the merch for the listening event that were sold on Kanye's website for less than 24 hours. Shit was obviously not finished, and as a concept, it appears that Donda 2 has officially been left behind. In fall of 2022, Ye would begin working on a new album called War, with a lot of James Blake collaborations. Some Donda 2 tracks would be carried over to this War era. However, Ye would soon scrap this concept as well, as he would dive headfirst into controversy. Now that we've run down the timeline of Donda 2, let's get into the tracks that would have made up this project. Now we have access to a shit ton of track lists from this era that Kanye has posted, Digital Nas has posted, Quavo has posted, so I'm just going to run down a majority of these main tracks, and then we'll get into the specifics after this. So, starting off, we got True Love, Broken Road, Get Lost, Too Easy, Fuck Flowers, We Did It Kid, Security, Pablo, Mr. Miyagi, Sci-Fi, Jesse, Never Forgive Yourself, Maintenance, 530, Close for Business, Happy, Selfish, Susie, Candyland, City of Gods, Lift Me Up, It's a Beautiful Life, Louis Bags, Nebraska, Keep It Burning, Depression, and First Time in a Long Time. Now in these videos about unreleased albums, I like to separate it. I'll get into the smaller songs that we don't really have any information on, but then I separate and we get into the main eventers, the big tracks that not only have a lot of details about them, but are also kind of like grails. Covering the duds real quick, we have City of Gods and Keep It Burning. These are tracks that were already released, and there's not really much info on them other than the fact that Keep It Burning, the version that was released with the stem player, had that really cool talking head sample, but I like what they did with the final version of the track, and Ye went crazy on that finished version on the Future album. And then we have our tracks that we have like little to no information on, and I don't really feel like separating them into their own separate sections. So those are Candyland, Nebraska, Closed for Business, which we just know there's reference tracks from Shenseea and Don Toliver, and then we have a snippet of Ye's verse, Depression, which to me is like, maybe this is controversial, a mid-ass freestyle, and then Susie, which is just like piano instrumental. We don't really know much about it either, and it has a Fat Money ref. But starting off with our main tracks, we have the perfect intro. This song is really good as an intro, and that's True Love featuring XXXTentacion. It's an X track from 2018 that was given to Ye by John Cunningham, who is a producer who worked with X a lot, and I think has some deal with X, like dealing with his discography or something, or unreleased shit. I'm not 100% sure. This is not an XXXTentacion fan page. This is a song that kicked off the Miami listening party, and on that Miami version, you have the intro lines from X that are really, really dramatic and beautiful, if I do say so myself. He's talking about a relationship that's on its final legs. And then Ye comes in talking about his position in life right now, where his kids, you got to share custody, and that whole situation. He's fresh dealing with this divorce shit, and it's a very emotional song with those runaway drums, at least on this Miami version. Ye's bars are great on this version, but this track would later be released as a single, where they just repeat his "no hard feelings, but these feelings hard though," and it's like so awkward and makes the song, to me, a lot less enjoyable. Like, I always go back to the Miami version personally. Like I said, though, Stadium version got those dope-ass runaway drums. There would later be an update on the stem player, solely just removing those, which makes the song a lot less to it then. I feel like the song's more dense without them. Single dropped on May 27th with those weird Kanye repeating edits. I don't know what the intentions were with that. But reference tracks from The Game, Jack Harlow, and more exist, along with, allegedly, a Beach House version of this track. I mentioned earlier how Ye linked up with Beach House, and there is, to me, I'm just a big Beach House fan, so every track that I talk about that has a Beach House version, you're gonna hear about it. Following True Love is the track Broken Road featuring Don Toliver, and this is a song played at that Miami listening event, and also was one of the 4 first Donda 2 releases on the stem player. Like I said, the main version of this track that we heard at the listening event, dropped on the stem player, has the Don Toliver feature, but a version featuring Shenseea also exists. Kanye's got his verse on here, and honestly, in my opinion, it's pretty rough. A lot of people got hung up on his whole line about, like, baby, I'm free like a homeless person. It's, and they get mad like Kanye, like, you don't know what a homeless person's like, blah, blah, blah. My issue isn't really with that. I just think his verse is, like, really rough until he picks it up in the second half. But I like the instrumental a lot, and Don Toliver is great on the hook and everything, in my opinion. Instrumental is really solid too, but in my opinion, a far more interesting track is the interlude-esque song, Get Lost. Now, what's confusing is Broken Road's original title was Get Lost. So, very strange, especially looking at track lists and everything, so there's a problem here, or a misunderstanding, I'm sure. This would honestly be here. But like I said, this is kind of like an interlude type track leading into the next track that we'll get to in a second, called Too Easy. But literally, there is no beat on this thing. We heard this in Miami. In the Miami version, there's like no beat, and it's just Kanye's vocals, this vocoder effect on it, where he's saying all these very interesting lines. This is like peak experimental Kanye, and I am just... it's kind of like there's a few things on Donda. For example, on God Breathed, where the instrumental just runs out for 2 minutes and just develops in its own way without any vocals. Like, this is another example like that, where it proves like Ye is still experimenting and shit, and it's just fucking awesome. Like I said, very minimalistic, very risky too, but it is a track that also has a lot of versions with different production on it. There's versions where there's a choir in the background, so it's not just the vocals, there's an instrumental. Also, this is another track that Beach House got their hands on during those sessions with Kanye and produced. But like I said, mainly a very interesting interlude track for the next song, Too Easy. Now, in my opinion, this is absolutely one of the standout songs from the Donda 2 era. We heard it at the Miami listening event, and it also was released on the stem player at that second update, the big one, the Miami version 2.22.22. That Miami version is mostly just Kanye mumbling through the beat, but the beat is so crazy that it's like, you know what, I'm still gonna put this shit on when I'm in the gym, you know? It's fucking awesome. Another track that Beach House got their hands on during those sessions, but also there's a version with reference tracks separately from both DaBaby and Don Toliver. Now there's a recently leaked version of this under the Kanye tracker. It's version 15, where Kanye has a full finished verse. The song is fully finished, and whew, it is crazy. And it's basically Kanye just talking about, like, yeah, the relationship's over and I have no one left to love me anymore, but you know what, I'm gonna love myself. That self-independent, he's an independent woman who doesn't need no man. It's really fire. Big fucking fan of this. I hope this is one of those tracks that makes it over to this new era that Kanye is working on, whatever project he is, you know, creating right now, because standout track, 100%. Now the next track is one that I think I'm honestly going to get some heat for because I'm not too crazy about it. A lot of people really liked it, but that track is Flowers. Again, heard it at that Miami listening party, released on the second update, the big one, Miami, and it has that house sample that people really enjoy that Kanye actually was sued for in, I think it was June or July of 2022. The song, though, it has that interesting sample. It's definitely an interesting track. And Kanye is basically talking about how, you know, he's new on the dating scene, and every girl's life who he touches, who he starts dating, it's going to change because he's going to buy them this and buy them that. He's a billionaire. He could change their life. Their life's going to change right now. I do personally really like, about the Miami version anyway, how the claps come in at the end of the track and the instrumental's progressing. I like that a lot. References by will.i.am and French Montana exist, among many others. But like I said, a track that I don't personally enjoy too much. I couldn't really see this passing over to future eras of Kanye. I think this is one that's kind of going to just die out in this Donda 2 era and be something that, you know, what could have been, but who knows. But this next track, whew, this shit is crazy. Security, a very Yeezus sounding track. Another one that kind of shows, like, damn, Kanye, he isn't too comfortable. He's still trying to push the envelope. This sound on this song is just insane. You talk about an instrumental that is just intimidating, and Kanye really brings it. He has that intimidating aura to him with his vocals, but also he gets fun with it too. It's just big Yeezus vibes. Another one played at that Miami listening party, but also this is another one of those original 4 that were first dropped on the stem player. There's a DaBaby reference version of this track, as well as a reference by Baby Keem, but that song we heard that was released on the stem player, you got Kanye really just talking about himself being a liability. Like, you're putting the security at risk by making them deal with me because I'm just crazy. I'm going to spaz out. It's another one. I fuck with the track a lot. And it is fitting for this era as well. And just very fitting for Kanye's personality. It's a unique ass track. And also at the end, I don't even know, the sample is just crazy and the beat picks up to finish out the track. Just, whew. And even the intro line. No, you can't be on my mama's album. Like, damn. We got another one of the original 4 here to talk about next, and that is We Did It, Kid. And another one, too, played at that Miami listening party where Ye was joined on stage by Migos. Miami version has that Baby Keem intro, as well as the Quavo and Takeoff verses, and a very uplifting instrumental, like perfect for, like, I don't know, an NBA commercial or some shit. But on that Miami version also, there's absolutely no sign of Kanye. Where has he gone? He is not here. He has not recorded his verse, apparently. For this track, you got a bunch of reference tracks done by the likes of DaBaby, Marilyn Manson even, The Game, and will.i.am. And then also, this is another track that Beach House got their hands on, and this is personally my favorite of the Beach House produced Donda 2 era tracks that we have heard so far that have leaked. But the Beach House version is like such a different vibe from the original, and like what Kanye was going for, that I don't think it doesn't necessarily work with the finished version. Like if I had to, I'd be like, fuck, I love this Beach House version, but I gotta drop the main one. It's just, I don't know. Listen to it, you'll see what I'm talking about. There's also a version of this track that features Playboi Carti with some ad-libs, as well as an Offset verse. But I'd say the best version of this track, the biggest version anyway, with Kanye on it, is the one that leaked very recently. And you have basically Kanye on the intro as well, where he's talking about Virgil Abloh and how he sees feet print in the sand, which is a really awesome line. And then Kanye also comes in at the end after the Migos verses and has his own verse there. But honestly, if I'm honest, not too big of a fan of the newest version. Anyway, Kanye's verse on the tail end, he's just like, yeah, my kid's got to be Christian, and he says it like multiple times. It's like, I don't know, a little goofy. But getting back onto tracks that I'm just big fans of, big supporter here. The track Pablo, to me, is, you know, when the Donda 2 listening party first happened, like, out of all the songs played in Miami, Pablo was the motherfucking one. The last of the 4 original tracks dropped on the stem player that we haven't talked about yet. It features, at least the Miami version features, Travis Scott and Future over just this crazy beat, and Kanye's contributions to the song. Travis is on the hook, Future's got a feature, and Kanye's just kind of mumbling, but at the same time, it works. In a weird way, it works. Also, this track just wins me over too, because like, it's calling back to the life of Pablo, like Kanye's alternate persona as Pablo. He's St. Peter, he's Pablo Picasso, he's Pablo Escobar all in one. That's just such a dope, like, I love that shit. Interestingly enough, there's a version that features Baby Keem that it hasn't leaked. We have a snippet of it yet. There's also a Shenseea version, which I would like to hear. I'd be interested. But the craziest version by far, my favorite, is the one that was intended for the Good Friday releases. It features Travis Scott and Future, also Marilyn Manson, and this shit is crazy. You got Travis on the hook. Kanye's kind of adding his lines in there too sometimes on the hook, but you got the Future verse, but it is a very different instrumental, and Kanye's lines are all finished, and then Marilyn Manson comes in when Kanye says like, then when I melt we all drowned, or whatever the fuck, and it's really fire, and it's like a really good use of Marilyn Manson. And eventually the beat switches up where Kanye just goes crazy at the end, like really just fucking going nuts with his verse. It's, you definitely, if any of these tracks, if you're gonna look for any track that I talk about here, look for that one. Our next track, Mr. Miyagi, is an interesting one because it appears that Kanye just like fucking hates this song. Honestly, it's very interesting. This was played at the Miami listening event, but it would not be dropped on the stem player when that big Miami update happened, the second drop on the stem player, specifically because Kanye was like, yo, I don't want this shit dropping. The version played at the LP featured Playboi Carti and Future, and it was like a really fun track, fun instrumental. I thought it was great. Kanye's on the hook. Carti has a real like fun feature, kind of like a callback to his pre-WLR days, but there's plenty of versions of this track that exist other than that Miami version. There's one with a crazy beat switch that is not available. We have not heard it yet, at least the general public, the general people who go on the Kanye tracker. But there's also one that features Marilyn Manson apparently, which would, I don't know how the hell he would fit into this track. But there's one, the main one that leaked anyway, that has Kanye's verse after the card. It's an additional verse from Kanye, which I'm not too crazy about the additional verse. I don't know. I could see why Kanye would be like, yeah, this isn't album material, but I don't know. There's something about this track that I just fuck with it. I don't know. It's like a fun track, you know what I mean? But stepping shit up to another level, we got the track Never Forgive Yourself. And this was not played in Miami. It also was never dropped on the stem player whatsoever. It's just a full on leaked track that we're not supposed to know about, and it is fire. Kind of reminds me of Too Easy in a way with the beat. It's really, you know, kind of in your face, upbeat, and it's essentially talking about how like, yeah, this girl left, but it's going to be the biggest mistake of her life. She's going to regret this shit. She's going to hate herself for it because you're like going to rise to the top and everything. This shit is just crazy. The version we have that I'm always bumping is the Dem Joints ref, and it is just crazy. There's a beat switch too that is just, it's insane. Honestly, this is another standout track from this era that I really hope Kanye somehow fixes into his future projects. Just what a track. And you could say what a track about our next song, but perhaps for different reasons. This is a really weird song and I'm really split on it. I'm talking about Sci-Fi. This is a Sean Leone track that was originally called Dawn, and it actually originates from 2020. It was originally his song, and he had this shit going during the God's Country era. This was played at the Miami listening party, and it was even dropped on the stem player during that second big Miami update. But there's this awesome, really eerie instrumental. You got Kim Kardashian on the intro where she's like, I married the greatest husband ever. He gave me, like, it's really cryptic, kind of ironic use of it. And then I think Sean Leone is great on this track. Great vocals, great lyrics, etc. And then Kanye comes in and he says the Morgan Freeman semen line. And I'm not kidding to those who haven't heard the track. He has a fucking line on this shit about Morgan Freeman and semen. Allegedly, there's a reference track for Young Lean on this song, which I would definitely love to hear. I would love to hear all the contributions Young Lean had to tracks, even if they're references during the Donda 2 era. Interestingly enough, this is a song that lived on during that war era, which is just, out of all the tracks, like, really? It's crazy. According to Sean Leone, though, this is a song that he has taken back. Kanye's done with it now, allegedly. and he is gonna release it on his upcoming album. We'll see, and it's not sure whether or not that released. If it does release on his album, it's not sure if Kanye will be featured. While I can appreciate aspects of sci-fi, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I am a fucking hater of Louis Bags. Like, I am a hater. I like the sample in the beginning, Kamala Harris being like, "We did it, Joe." I think that's great because that video is fucking hilarious. But I think this song is just ass. We heard this shit at the Miami listening event as well. Dropped on the second version of the Miami update stem player shit, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I've said that about so many tracks right now. But like I said, on the Miami version, you got the Kamala intro, which is great. Jack Harlow is on this song. He's a feature, and his verse is very good. And I don't usually fuck with Jack Harlow, but I actually like his verse here. I can appreciate it. It's good. But like, it's just it feels like this dream feels like I am like in sleep paralysis. And Kanye's just like, "I stopped buying Louis Bags after Virgil Pat." It's like, what is this? What is this song? What was he thinking? Allegedly, there's a version out there with XXX Tentacion vocals on the track. The Game also did a reference for this song. But honestly, hopefully this never... I don't want this shit to drop ever, bro. This is like the middest of the mid. Honestly, I'm sure a lot of people think like this track I'm going to talk about next is mid as hell. But I really, really, really fuck with Jesse. I think it's a fun ass song. This song has such a unique instrumental. This one was never played at the listening event in Miami. Also never put on the stem player, but like, this shit is just so unique. Kanye is referencing Breaking Bad on this song, talking about like Jesse had blah blah blah, Jesse had rules, and it's just a really fun song that it's just very unique instrumental. I don't know why, I just really fuck with it. Also, just to put y'all on, if you look up Jesse featuring Playboi Carti, they put Carti's verse from Meh on WLR. Why do I keep saying WLR like I'm talking in fucking abbreviation mode? Carti's verse from Meh on Whole Lotta Red, they put it over this track and it is really good. This song originally was called Honestly, and Kanye just freestyled over this beat by Digital Nas. References by Fat Money and Vori exist, but there's also a version of this track produced by Beach House, which I couldn't imagine what that sounds like, but this is like definitely kind of up their alley. Very interested in that. There's a cleaned up version of that freestyle that leaked in April this year, and that's kind of the version of the song we really have with Kanye on it, and it's really rough and he's mumbling, but honestly it's just a vibe. I love the mumble. I love it. It's a fun fucking song. And it's a song that will obviously never drop. Kanye will probably never revisit this shit, but it's a vibe. I like it. It's fun. Honestly, if this next track never drops, I need to hear this shit before I die. That's all I'm saying. And that is the track Happy. Genuinely one of the craziest beats I've ever heard. I don't know if I want to make that statement right now. This was originally called Pay to Talk, and it is a track that was played at the Miami listening event with Kanye featuring Future. And Future slides over this fucking beat. I'm hoping if Kanye doesn't use this, he just gives it to him, because shit was insane. And Kanye's verse is like fully mumble, but he has some very high points in his verse. He's talking about like, "Want to throw me in the institute, all you can do is salute, Mortal Kombat and I finish you." Like, he kind of flows over. He gets his shit going. Like I said, it's a crazy ass beat heard at that listening event, but the censored version of it that they released on the stem player is just like, it takes a lot of the energy out of it. Nate Day allegedly said that he heard a finished version of this track in the club, but like, apparently everyone's saying he's lying, so unfortunately I don't think a finished version of this track exists, or at least we don't have access to it. But like I said, I really hope Kanye doesn't revisit this. Just give it to Future, man. It's crazy. Next track we got Maintenance, also features Future, and I guess he did like a freestyle over a beat in 2021. I don't know if y'all remember, like one of the first pics we saw of Kanye in 2021 was him with Future and Travis Scott with these crazy ass masks on. And I guess during that green tile session for Donda, Future freestyled over this beat, and those vocals would be taken from that freestyle and put on this track Maintenance during the Donda 2 era. This track was originally called Sky High, and Kanye did 2 freestyles over it. One was 8 minutes, second version was 12. And what OG Volta did essentially is they put those 2 freestyles together, the best versions of them, and then added those Future vocals to make Maintenance, at least the first kind of fullish version that we kind of know today. This song was never played at the listening event, never dropped on the stem player, but the version we have is kind of like Future's on it, and it's kind of talking about how this girl, you're leaving, but guess what? No one's going to be able to treat you how I did. Like, I know you and I can afford you, and this and that. It's like toxic with the instrumental and everything. It's kind of beautiful. I really like this track. There's references by Fat Money and will.i.am. Always kind of interested to see that will.i.am and Kanye like linked up in 2022. Like, what the fuck? There's multiple versions produced by many different people. The Marilyn Manson one sticks out as one that is just god awful, not good. There's a bunch of different drums in it and everything. It's just fucking, what is this? There's also a version by Beach House. However, the main best version was made in March of 2022, and the vocals in the beginning were redone to go over that mumble section, and also Kanye has an additional verse at the end that is finished. Ultimately, another track with a lot of potential, but who knows if it will ever see the light of day. Adding on to songs, there are a lot of potential, but I don't know if they're going to make it to this next Kanye era. You have the song Beautiful Life, and there's just this really awesome instrumental, like very eerie instrumental kind of. It sounds very dystopian, and it samples this track OG Talk by Slim Thug. You got the siren thing, like you just got to hear this song. I don't even know how to describe it. It's another track that was never played for the public in any way, but it is just really fascinating, honestly. The version we have is a Dem Joints reference track, but the opening line, like right before the beat drops, is like, I'm pretty sure it's pull myself up out that hole, like got away from the rut I was in. But I love to tell myself and believe and lie to myself and say it's like, pull myself up out that hole. Like, that's just so much harder. I don't know. I know Kanye's like not about swearing anymore. There's a version out there where Kanye freestyled over this beat, and then there's also a reference by Fat Money, but, you know, like I said, a lot of potential for this song in my opinion. Also, you got Kanye, it's like that irony. Like, he's suffering, but he's like, you know what, it's a beautiful life. Like, whew, she's just fire as hell. Kind of like Welcome to My Life vibes. Next track is another posthumous collab between Kanye and XXXTentacion, Selfish. This was a track that was played at that Miami listening event and also released on the stem during the second update. And honestly, another one I'm not too crazy about. I like XXXTentacion's vocals. I think he's great. I think the beat is alright, but it's just like not Kanye album worthy. I think Kanye's performance is honestly very mid. Like I said, I like X's lines. He's talking about how the relationship's failing, but his lust after this girl is more based on his loneliness, his insecurities. But Kanye just comes in with like this fucking mid-ass verse. I'm just not into it. Refs by will.i.am, Fat Money, and Don Toliver exist. But, you know, there's also versions with Shenseea and Jack Harlow they recorded to be features on this track. But again, another one, I just don't know if this will drop. I don't think it will. It's one that's probably going to be left in this era for good. Speaking of which, that will probably be the same for the track Lift Me Up. Another one played at the Miami listening event, dropped on the stem player, but the version we have that was played at that listening event, oddly enough, was just a reference track by Vori, when there was a Kanye version of this track that existed when the listening event happened, allegedly. Fat Money has a reference for this song too, but honestly, this is just one that doesn't really do it for me. Instrumental's just too kind of bland. It seems like it kind of goes nowhere, like it should progress to something, but it's not. Kind of like interlude sounding, but it's not meant to be an interlude. Also, I like the lyrics, though. It's kind of talking about how, like, the media wants Kanye and Kim to break up, but he wants to save the family. Like, you're just giving them what they want, blah, blah, blah. Lyrics are good. Kanye, though, with his version, it is very rough. I will say that. His vocals they sound awful. And I am someone who defends Kanye's singing. I think he's gotten better. I think he provides something unique whenever he goes on a track. He vocalizes like that, but it's rough, man. But kind of keeping on that same uplifting vibe, you know, with the instrumental is the track First Time in a Long Time. This is another one, played at the Miami listening event, dropped on the stem player in that second update, and featuring the Miami version anyway, Soulja Boy. Ye's vocals on the released version, to be honest with you, are rough as hell. I can't lie, I do like the lost my best friend, lost my spouse, only billionaire you know, that's sleeping on the couch line, but other than that, I can go without ever hearing this song again. Tracks believed to have originated in either late 2021 or early 2022. There's a lot of reference tracks from the likes of Gunna, Sci-Hi, and Fat Money. And interestingly enough, this is another one that lived on into that war era in late 2022 for Kanye. I do find it weird how, like, whenever someone disrespects Kanye, he is more open to hang out with them and accept them and, like, record the studio with them, or, like, I don't know, like Charlemagne the God's case, like, do an interview with them. It's very strange, but I do like Soulja Boy's verse, and it is hilarious. That whole situation cracks me up anyway, so it's kind of great that this exists. And finally, the last track we're going to talk about here is 530. Likely, in my opinion, the greatest track to come out of this Donda 2 era, an emotional one, and one that also was never played for the public really, except for, you know, at least in the Donda 2 era, was in the Last Week documentary in the fall. We'll get to that. Despite not being played at the listening event in Miami or uploaded to the STEM Player website, this was a song that was on a lot of track lists, under the title 530/Dear Summer. This song is a crazy ass soul sample that is just on a loop, and it is a beautiful instrumental. There's a version out there produced by Marilyn Manson where he has a guitar at the end of this track, and it's like going along to the beat, and it's really dramatic and it's nice in its own right, but it really just changes the entire vibe of the song, so I am not a fan. There's multiple versions of this track that exist with all sorts of references from the likes of Jack Harlow, Sci-Hi the Prince, Fabio Foreign, etc. There's even a version that features Shenseea that is not leaked yet, but the main version we're bumping is version 11, which is just solo Kanye with finished lines, finished verses, and an insane and beautiful beat switch at the end. Ye's really talking about his fallout with Kim here, how he's drunk texting her, in his feelings. And, personally for me, the standout line being, "Pray your soulmate got a soul when you meet her." Just an emotional ass song. A lot of people I remember seeing when Kanye and Kim's divorce got announced, like, oh, Kanye's gonna drop 808s and Heartbreak 2, it's gonna be a great album, which in its own right is kind of fucked up to like, oh yeah, he's suffering, let's go. But, like, this is the emotional track. This is the cut that people were really hoping for. This, honestly, is just amazing track. And then you get the beat switch, which somehow the instrumental just elevates to an even higher, more fucking gorgeous level, and Kanye's like, you don't really love Ye, go listen to Drake, bitch. Like, Kanye, he's just that fucking guy. Like, he's deeper, and all those guys are talented. Like, we love Future, we love Moneybagg Yo, we love Drake, but like, Ye is just that guy. This is one of those tracks that lived on to that war fall 2022 era, and honestly, if Kanye only saves and keeps one of these songs from this Donda 2 era, this needs to be the one. This is beautiful track, and if he does not eventually drop this shit, I don't know what he's on. This is the one. This is special. But ultimately, I think Donda 2 and this entire era is best described as just missed potential. While the record was never finished, the ideas Ye had at this time that were heard on these experimental ass tracks were truly fascinating. When you take risks like Ye did during this era, you hit and you miss. Well, you have shit like Sci-Fi with the Morgan Freeman line, you also got Too Easy. While you have mediocre shit like Louis Bags, you also got Pablo. While a lot of these tracks were unfinished when Kanye first presented them to the public, as time has gone on and we've heard the work he has done on these songs, they've turned out great. While it's unsure which of these songs Ye might include on a future release, I sure hope he remembers some of these dope ass tracks. Just to hear Ye still pushing the envelope and doing experimental ass shit like Get Lost, no instrumental, just vocals, it just proves he's still that motherfucker. And looking back on Donda 2 as an unfinished piece rather than a fully finished album, a sequel that was ready and meant to be published, you really come to appreciate Kanye's experimentation in this era, as he attempted to take on a sound he has never touched before.